Hello, thank you for this opportunity to present my research at HCI 2020. My name is Neil O'Dwyer and I'm a postdoc researcher at vSense, an XOR research group based in Trinity College Dublin. This research was conducted in collaboration with Gareth Young, Nicholas Johnson, Amin Zerman and Professor Alyosha Smolich. In this talk, I will give you a quick introduction to the project, describe some background and related work, describe the methodology of the subject matter expert interviews, discuss the results, and offer some conclusions and further directions for the research. Virtual and augmented play are XOR reimaginings of Samuel Beckett's drama entitled Play. Using volumetric video techniques, we reinterpret Beckett's text in a way that is engaging for 21st century audiences. So rather than describing the work, the best way to present it is by video. So please have a look at this trailer which succinctly describes the work.
Virtual Play is a reimagining of Samuel Beckett's theatrical text entitled Play for digital culture. Play was chosen because it specifically engages the question of dialogue and interactivity. The sequence of the actors speaking is determined by a moving spotlight, which Beckett calls the interrogator. They speak when the light is on them and fall silent when the light is off. So play is a game of interaction between the light operator and the actor, mediated by light technology. In our VR version, we acknowledge the role of the user as active. We recognize new opportunities for narrative and give the power of activation over to the end user, whose gaze becomes the spotlight. The user thus embodies the interrogator and is empowered to independently discover the story merely by looking at the characters.
Yes, strange darkness best in the dark of the worst, till all dark then all well for the time, but it will come, the time will come, the thing is there, you'll see it, get off me, keep off me, all dark, all still, all over, wiped out.
I said, have I been neglecting you? How could we be together in the way we are if there was someone else? The
photographs were kind to her. Seeing her now for the first time full length in the flesh, I understood why he preferred me.
As I did with all my heart, I could not but feel sorry for her.
I said to him, give her up.
The user also has 6 degrees of freedom to move around the virtual environment, so the experience is one of active immersion as opposed to passive observation. Virtual play questions the essence of the performance spectacle in digital culture. The project aims to investigate how narrative, perception, communication, and embodiment have been altered through contemporary media, and asks how they might operate in the future.
We were not long together when she said,
just a shade, but I doubt it, I doubt it.
In this video, you can see a brief screen recording of the augmented reality version experienced using the Magic Leap AR-HMD.
Commitments. When I was satisfied it was all over, I went to have a gloat. Just a common tart. What?
I must have looked incredulous. Ask Erskine, she said, if you don't.
Words as he could testify, if he is still living and has not forgotten, coming and going on the earth, letting people in, showing people out. Word to the effect that she would settle my hash. I confess this did alarm me a little at the time. Why didn't you get out, I said, when he started moaning about his home life. There is obviously nothing between you anymore, or...
Believe me. But she threatens to take her own, I said. Not yours, she said. No, I said hers. We had fun trying to work this out. Then I got frightened and made a clean breast of it. She was looking...
He could have found in her when he had me. Pudding face, puffy, spots, blubbermouth, jowls, no neck, dogs you could, calves like a flunky.
More and more desperate. She had a razor in her vanity bag. Adulterers take...
Is there anything between us, he said. What do you take me for? Something machine? Of course, with him...
Warning, never admit.
He was mine. And again, all mine. I was happy again. I went about singing the world. Then I began to smell her off him again, yes. Before I could do anything, he disappeared. That meant she had won that slut. I couldn't credit.
When I saw her again, she knew. She was looking wretched, pardon. Some fool was cutting grass, a little rushed than another. The problem was how to convince her that no
danger of the spiritual thing. Then why did you get out, I said. I sometimes wondered if he was not living with her.
The point of this slide is to articulate the collaborative nature of this experiment. It grew out of an initial surge in vSense to undertake creative experiments, which drafted in expert collaborators from the drama department and electronic engineering, resulting in the cultural artifact of virtual play. I should point out straight away that we have several technical and aesthetic publications on this work. So here we wanted to take the research to a new level by conducting a series of subject matter expert, or SME for short, interviews that would speak directly to this HCI conference. So this paper concerns the documentation and analysis of a series of SME interviews conducted in early 2020. The core topics covered in the interviews were awareness of state-of-art MR technology, using MR in the current domain, current user requirements, challenges to be faced using MR, and the receptiveness of the film, theatre and performance practice community. This slide shows the distribution of users that self-identify as experts by factoring in two considerations. 1, the domain of technology weighed against 2, the domain of theatre and literature studies. As you can see, all participants were experts in one field and some were experts in both. No novices were interviewed. This slide shows our interview laddering framework and how the content of the interviews was analysed. The codes show how the core themes were broken into categories and grouped based on overlapping subject matter touched on by the interviewees. The topics describe the actual interview content that forms the basis of this paper. These fields illustrate the further subcategorization of the interview content into groups that are understandable and digestible. So, moving on to the results and discussion. The first category was previous knowledge and experiences of MR. These discussions focused on experiences, context of use, and expectations. Interviewees' experiences included early AR, VR, and 3D performances, academic works and higher education events, historical narratives, installation art or bespoke applications, virtual landscapes, and dance choreographies. Context of use included cultural heritage sites, art museums and galleries, pedagogical supports, and performances that explore audience participation. In relation to expectations, interviewees believed MR technologies would help artists to realize new ideas and think differently about storytelling, comprise a niche, alternative, experimental form of content creation and consumption, are immersive and conducive to presence, offer new, exploratory and extraordinary viewing platforms, could transform the space between audience and performer, are lacking the communal experience of classical performance because each spectator is in their own world, and they could afford artists the ability to provide new types of imaginary worlds, transport audiences to another place, reproduce specific historical scenarios, apply modern perspectives to classical narratives, and create new empathy-driven experiences where audiences can step into the shoes of another. Specifically, SMEs believed that VR was better suited to surreal avant-garde installation art, and they also noted that 360 video is an interesting way of recording theatre, which is very difficult to capture successfully on conventional video. Generally, they believed scholars and practitioners were somewhat uncomfortable using it, but it is now more readily accepted. It could be a disruptive technology for contemporary performance, and the discipline must expand its knowledge in new ways and reconfigure the stage to allow the practice of new techniques. Moving on to the second topic in the results and discussion section, that is MR in current practice. These discussions focused on problem solving, performance, and gains and losses. In relation to problem solving, interviewees focused on newness and fundamental differences between MR and established formats by highlighting the inevitable evolution of the domain, the need to establish a new grammar, the uncertainty that novelty causes in creation and consumption behaviours, and the inconsistencies between the formats, like edited narrative versus the choose where you look viewer paradigm, and fast-paced plots versus the slow exploratory modes, and the passive empathy model versus a new active mode of empathizing. In relation to MR tech in performance, they questioned its reliability. They noted the viewer paradigm complicates storytelling compared with the mainstream. They suggested it could be useful for reanimating dead actors or supporting rehearsal processes. They noted that it resurrects the live versus recorded debate, and they speculated on its potential for telepresent, networked, site-specific, immersive, and one-to-one theatre. In terms of gains and losses, interviewees felt the interactive specificities opened new opportunities for audience engagement, and they felt some spontaneous presence was lost because the actors perform individually in the capture studio. They felt viewing theatre in isolation could cause a loss of communal experience, and there are benefits for dissemination and universal access. So moving on to the third part of the results and discussions, which concern user requirements, new and existing roles. These discussions focused on users and current practice. In relation to users, interviewees felt that MR would benefit the current and next generation, suit avant-garde gallery installations, which already have an established grammar but do not attract large regular paying audiences, provide multimodal tactile experiences for mobile agent audiences, open new ways for creatives to approach storytelling, and impact upon fundamental stakeholders like theatre publics, performers, technology experts, and students. In terms of current practice, SMEs thought that MR would keep stakeholders informed on creation and consumption behaviour, provide new controlled platforms for artists to express experimental imaginings, push the boundaries of the current mainstream model, disrupt traditional storytelling strategies because the audience has a new active role and the indeterminate beginning and end influences how they engage. And they felt it would disrupt the duties of practitioners, specifically producers who must rethink performance under immersive and networked specificities, directors who must evolve towards a scenographic, spatial, world-building perspective over and above the dominant temporal one, and production designers who must design a virtual world and not just a set. So, results and discussion 4, challenges of using MR. These discussions focused on the domain, practitioners, and audiences. Domain-related challenges included access to cutting-edge technology, keeping up with developments, supporting MR production skills in the classroom, emphasizing immersive, visual and design-led practice, and responding to new conditions of the medium. Challenges facing practitioners included a shift in emphasis from production to post-production, which could marginalize real actors. Directors would have more dramaturgical roles. Increased demands on internalized acting as performances become even more intimate than a big screen close-up. And technicians would have to modify their skills. Audience-related challenges included more expectations from the audience for audience participation and clear instructions for them. The submission of narrative to chance. Entering narratives without a clear beginning or end. Exploring stories from multiple perspectives. And evolving beyond the current individualistic mode of consumption to a more communal one, where viewers are engaged collectively. Generally, SMEs preferred AR because they could easily imagine collective experiences for mobile AR audiences. So, results and discussion 5, receptiveness of the community. These discussions focused on openness towards using new technology, technologies that work now, and ideas for solving existing problems. Regarding openness, SMEs felt that MR technology could have a positive impact on the cultural sector, problematize the space between the live and the mediated. It could suffocate theatre by prioritizing technological innovation, and it could disrupt the nature of theatre. Generally, they felt that practitioners would have to be receptive and use it intentionally. MR represented a vital and rich research area for creative arts, and some resistance was inevitable. Regarding technologies that work now, SMEs felt that MR would flourish while the novelty factor lasts. Volumetric video was a potentially disruptive intervention. MR has greatly improved the cultural heritage sector. AR HMDs were not as advanced as VR ones. Mobile phones and tablets dominate the HCI AR paradigm, but AR HMDs would be a game changer. They also felt the AR HMD the visual was glitchy and distracting to the overall experience, and they felt AR is highly dependent upon site specificity. Regarding ideas for solving existing problems, SMEs predicted that advances in network technologies would provide distributed, shared live experiences. More interesting work would emerge. Artists would begin to think differently. The technology could nurture a new level of performer-audience intimacy, and aesthetic theories applied in arts practice would require updating. So, in conclusion, overall, SMEs felt that engaging VV, that's volumetric video, through MR is exciting and topical, but challenges include integrating techniques into current practice workflows, affordability and accessibility of the technology, suspending disbelief compared with the classical 3-act narrative, and technology overtaking the content. Regarding artistic practice and audience engagement, the cohort affirmed that volumetric video and MR would disrupt existing modes of practice and engagement. They highlighted the need to establish a new storytelling grammar that prioritizes spatialization, mise-en-scène, exploration, and discovery. They highlighted the need to explore the specificities of immersive technology and link them to the content, and the need to integrate benefits of existing interactive narrative models like gaming that successfully employ user profiles, actions, rewards, and shared community experience. They warned of the folly of attempting to supplant existing effective and time-honored modes of storytelling, and expressed an ambivalence towards reinterpreting existing stories for MR. Although it makes the content accessible to contemporary audiences, it can change the author's intention. And finally, in relation to future work, in this paper, we only focused on modifications to practitioner-audience relations. Other topics discussed were cultural heritage and fidelity to the original, MR as a pedagogical tool, performance theory, and biopolitics of access and data privacy. Therefore, the gathered data demands further reflection and research, particularly the potential of MR for developing empathy-building experiences and its effects on perspective taking. Many thanks for your attention. and we'd love to hear any questions in relation to the research.